Good afternoon. I'd like to bring the regular afternoon meeting of Township Council to order. And the first item is the adoption and receipt of the agenda items. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Arneson moves, seconder. Councillor Whitmarsh, all those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Next item is to approve the regular afternoon meeting minutes of February 10th and the special meeting for budget of February 10th, moved by Councillor Ferguson. Seconder. Councillor Arneson, any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed and carries. Now I need a motion to resolve into special closed. A motion, please. Councillor Long, second. Seconder, Councillor Whitmarsh, and Councillor Woodward.
I just have one property item.
Property, okay. And Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I have intergovernmental and personnel / legal.
Legal, okay. All right, thank you. With that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed, carried. And I'll go to closed. Thank you. All right, good afternoon. Now reconvene the regular afternoon meeting of Township Council. Next item is correspondence. There's one item of correspondence. Could I have a motion to receive, please? Councillor Kuntz, seconder. Councillor Whitmarsh, any discussion on G1? See none, I'll call the question on G1. Receipt. And that carries unanimously. And move on to minutes of committees. H1 is Heritage Advisory Committee, Recreation, Culture and Parks Advisory Committee. Could we have a motion to receive those minutes? H1. Councillor Ferguson, second. Second, Councillor Whitmarsh. Discussion. Seeing none. Call the question on H1. It carries unanimously. H2 is the draft Recreation, Culture, Parks Advisory Committee work plan for 2020. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Richter, Councillor Ferguson. Discussion. Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I wonder, do we also have to approve their annual report as well? No, we just received the annual report? Okay.
It's received in the minutes, is that correct? Ms.
The annual reports are actually received in the distribution list.
So we don't have to approve the annual report. Okay.
Thank you. Okay, see no further discussion. I'll call the question on H2. Carries unanimously. And other business is a chat regarding the Mayor's Standing Committee on Development Management Process Review workshop scheduled for March 23rd. So there is a workshop for council input. However, it is not mandatory, and there are other opportunities to have input. Ms. Bauer, can you give maybe a little bit of background on that, on the workshop? Do you know? No? Okay, I thought maybe we'd... Okay, I'll open up to questions. Councillor Richter?
Yeah, I was just wondering why we're having a workshop. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me. It's the committee. Isn't the committee doing its work, and then it's just going to report back to council?
You're correct in that. The committee mandate, as we thought it would be to reach out to members of the community, members of the development community, and also to council, and certainly wanted to get council's input on it. The committee really, as a committee, isn't providing input on this. The committee is more of a steering committee, and this is the opportunity for all members, including the committee members, to provide input on development management process review. Also, the consultant, Dr. Holden, will provide her findings up to that point for discussion with council. So it's more of a workshop for basically what it says, for council to have their input. The committee itself is more of a steering committee than it is actually providing the input.
Well, I'm just wondering why we need to have a workshop. Why wouldn't something like this, because it's obviously policy, go to the new CPC? Because
of the committee's structure, they are asking council to come to a workshop. So it isn't, again, it's not mandatory. CPC, I think, would be more mandatory, but I think it is up to members of council. Certainly would hope that all members of council do make an attempt to have their input, but certainly this is a way for Dr. Holden to provide her findings to council in a more relaxed and informal manner. Mr. Backen?
Worship, perhaps I can just clarify in terms of what was explained to staff by the consultant. And that is, they're looking for a way to engage the council members in a consultation process to get their input, if you will. They felt it might be easiest to have what they're labeling as this workshop, but they're prepared to meet with each one individually or with groups or subgroups, whatever actually works. I think it's a bit of their lack of understanding in terms of what workshop means versus council meeting versus the terminology. So as we explored it, we simply provided the time that's being labeled as a workshop, and it's really just their chance to interview those members of councils that are available, and if not all can make it, which we expect is highly unlikely, that there be a direct communication with each member of council so they can actually have their opportunity for input before it goes back to the committee.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As a member of the committee, I did want to say this is like an invitation for council members, and it's a discussion point today. You're not asking for any action. And I did want to say that we actually, the committee, which is the name of the committee, your standing committee, is the Development Management Process Review. And it also helps us as councillors understand how we proceed and how we can move forward with projects, whether they're regular development projects, whether they're commercial, industrial, subsidized housing, and the like, and how we review how we can move things forward and some things faster than others, get action and activity on things. Also, there's a terms of reference that perhaps you can get the clerk or get yourself to get council members to review, and also to give us an idea, give the council members that aren't on the committee an idea what Dr. Holden, who's the consultant who's hired, and her SFU graduate students, what they're doing, what they've done to date, and also what they were looking for is ideas, suggestions, comments, and concerns about the development management process. So it's an opportunity, if I may, and I just wanted to bring that to council's attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, part of the consultation process. Councillor Woodward?
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify some of that. You kind of confused me there a little bit. You said that she's going to be reporting her findings to date?
Yeah, so Dr. Holden has been doing some consultation with stakeholders in the industry, and I haven't seen that yet either. So this is an opportunity for that to come to council, have a discussion, have input, and also have council have some input. So I don't have the entire framework. Sorry, I haven't sort of been out of touch over the last month and a half, 2 months, but certainly that is the intent, is to really we want to bring council, all the members of council involved who want to be involved.
So she wouldn't be presenting those in the public domain. She'd be presenting those in a closed meeting, essentially.
It's a workshop, and certainly members of the public want to show up and watch us. We don't do anything in closed. And there will be a formal presentation to council at the completion of the work of the committee. So this is just a part of the process of the committee. It's not the final. If that's what you're thinking it is, it's certainly
So there
just
would be
workshop.
a formal presentation in the public domain at a regular afternoon council meeting by Dr. Holden, you said?
That has always been the intent, that we'd have a conclusion to this. Yeah, this is just part of the consultation process. And there have been some already that have happened with stakeholders in the industry. Councillor Davis?
Just to maybe clarify, Mayor Furrows, the Mayor Standing Committee, was it their decision to have council involved? Like, I'm just thinking, like, if it's a committee, they should kind of be on their own and kind of, their input, because maybe the last thing they want is my input, like as a councillor, right?
It's the first thing they want.
But I guess it's disguised as a workshop, so we can our involvement would be
It is part of the terms of reference of the committee is to seek input from council.
Okay.
And this is the way of doing it, and certainly I know there's always been questions about this that we're all controlling it, but we're not. We're a steering committee, and the whole intent is to get input from the community and from council. And this is the opportunity for council. A lot of work has been done to get to this point, and this is now our opportunity as council to provide input on the actual workings of the development process.
Good. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Is there any other business? I see no further questions, so thank you for that discussion. Appreciate it. Okay. Councillor Woodward?
Yeah, just while we have some time here in the afternoon, I wanted to raise the Denny Ross open house item that occurred here this week, Mr. Back, and if I may, Mr. Mayor, this question through to staff, in confirming that with the senior park staff that were in attendance, that that item would not be coming back to council for a decision. Can you confirm that, or?
I think what they referenced was that the input has to come back to council, at least for its information. At that point, we'll determine what the next steps would actually be. I think they're referencing that we don't anticipate a decision per se, such as going ahead and building something at this point. I think they're looking at it in terms of coming back to council for information. As you may recall, there was the open house for those that weren't in attendance, and there was, I guess to put it this way, there was no solution as presented that I think met all the needs. There was, in fact, some significant concerns expressed about many of the solutions, and now they've been tasked with trying to determine if there's another option. There probably is a further option. It's just much more expensive, and that's something that they're trying to cost out. So at the present time, we anticipate returning at least to council with some information in terms of what the open house results were, and then potentially with some next steps. But we don't anticipate any form of construction, at least not until we have a better broad cross-section of support. So
I just want to add that, at least from my own experience in talking to a few of the attendees, that there was some concern presented that there was no option 4 or 5. So option 4 being potential for angled parking out on the main thoroughfare, and option 5 to not do anything at all, subject to some concerns around the developer contribution potentially being lost. So I think that was my concern, that only 3 options were presented, and I wanted to echo some of that concern I heard from the public. And just to get a commitment, or maybe a motion may be necessary, that neither of the 3 options be proceeded with without a council decision.
Okay, if there's going to be a motion, then I'm going to declare a conflict on this because I have put a deposit on.
I could also do it as a notice of motion, Mr. Mayor,
Okay,
but it may be it's a relatively minor item, so I'd ask for your direction on that, whether you want that as a notice of motion, or we can simply suggest that we do not want staff to proceed without a council debate and decision.
I'll leave it up to you, but if there's going to be a motion, I'll have to step out.
It's a pretty minor one, so I'd like to move that.
Okay.
In my opinion, if you don't rule it out.
I'll declare. Fine. I'll declare a conflict, and I'll ask Councillor Ferguson to take the chair while I'm out. Thank you.
Has it been second?
No.
Thank you. So perhaps I can clarify the motion to see if it has a seconder. That would be to direct staff to report back on the open house results and not proceed with option 1, 2, or 3 without council debate and council direction. So move.
Second by Councillor Richter. Discussion. We'll clear the clue.
I think speak to that, Mr. Chair, if I may. Councillor Ferguson, if I may speak to that briefly. I think the idea here is that rather than prejudge on option 4 or 5, get some of that feedback from option 1, 2, and 3. There were a number of residents there that were writing in option 4 on their own. So I expect that will come through in the feedback forms and some of the online commentary. But I think I'd leave it there. I think it's something that at least this came across to me as a very important political decision, not a staff level decision. Thank you.
Okay, the next speaker is Councillor Long.
Long or me?
You were. Oh, pardon me, Councillor Richter. I'm sorry. He's been pushing.
My lights on.
It's
I'm
my
just wondering
pleasure.
about
My
that.
mistake.
Yes, and I just want to echo the concerns that Councillor Woodward has raised. There was a huge turnout. I very rarely see that many people at an open house. A lot of concern and upset about taking park space away to put parking in the park. And also the question came up with regards to slow pitch use of the field. And I'm wondering, does slow pitch need to use that field? Could we move whatever team is assigned there to another slow pitch field, and that would alleviate the need for parking?
Is that a question to staff?
Yeah.
Mr. Backen? Or
we'll have to look into that, Mr. Chair. Yeah, we'll have to simply look into it.
Okay, we'll have
Okay.
Councillor Richter? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
no, so I think that council, this needs to be a policy decision, a council decision on this because of the public concern out there.
Okay. Councillor Whitmarsh, please.
Yeah, so, I certainly support the idea of the motion. I just thought I heard Mr. Backen suggest that that's exactly what would take place, is that the information would come from the public to council for any decision. So is that, I just want to confirm that that's exactly what was going to happen anyways.
Effectively correct, just a different trajectory, I guess. What I mean by that is that we were going to bring the results back. I think there was some concern from council that we might proceed to construct. That can be dealt with by the motion. Our intention was not to proceed to construct at this time because we didn't see a clear winner in the results. So I think the motion is still relevant in that it's actually making it clearer to the public that there's not going to be a construction process without further dialogue.
Yeah, I think for me, I mean, it's, I didn't attend the open house, so I wasn't there, and I certainly value the feedback from the councillors that were there, but it would be helpful to have the information come from staff on exactly what occurred at the open house before we make any decisions on any of the options. It might be clear to the councillors that attended that options 1 to 3 aren't appropriate, but I don't have that information, so that would be helpful to have that come from staff before we make any kind of decision.
Okay, Councillor Woodward, what's your point of order?
Yeah, the council procedure bylaw indicates that we can ask for the motion to be read back at any time. So for Councillor Whitmarsh's benefit, I'd like it read back, please.
Councillor Woodward, would Councillor Whitmarsh have asked for the motion be read? If I may, the motion be read by the staff.
The motion reads that staff report back on the open house results and not proceed with options 1, 2, or 3 without further council debate.
So that's great. I just don't understand the difference between what Mr. Backen told us before and this motion, but because they're the same, I guess I'm happy to support it.
We'll have an opportunity, I'm sure, when that does come back. But if I may, we finish, Councillor Whitmer? And the next speaker is Councillor Davis.
Actually,
he's on the schedule.
I have no issues bringing it back to council and having a look at it. So, but now if maybe Councillor Woodward could explain what the difference is, because I see a similarity. So, okay, Mike.
Is there a question you want?
No, that was a comment.
Okay, that was it? And the next speaker is Councillor Long.
Oh, fabulous. Yeah, I suppose this really should have been a notice of motion. We're entertaining motions on the fly, so that's my first concern. But secondly, there were some councillors that seemed to have, and I heard the words political decision. This is when you're talking about safety, parking, facilities. That's not a political decision. Maybe it is to some, but it isn't. It's a practical decision, and that's what staff are here for. So, quite frankly, Mr. Chair, this is inappropriate again. I think that this is not something that council should be discussing. We don't have any report in front of us. Many of us were not at the open house because the open house isn't for councillors necessarily. It's for the public to put input. That input will go through a process that staff looks after. This is another situation where certain members of council are micromanaging this organization. We do not own this corporation. We are simply here to represent the people and do the best we can, and I think directing staff to do something they wouldn't already normally do is inappropriate. So if you just leave it alone, I'm sure staff will come with a report at the appropriate time, and if there is a council decision to make, it will be made at the appropriate time. So I would ask you to call this out of order.
Did you have a question at all?
Are you going to call it out of order or not?
I'm not calling it.
Oh, okay.
Next speaker is Councillor Arneson for the first time.
Yes, thank you to the chair. I was actually at the meeting, and I was there because I wanted, as I always do when I'm available, to find out what the public commentary is. I think what's unusual about this situation is, if council will recall, or for maybe some councillors who would not know, that this project, this proposal, which is almost completed at this point, went forward with one of the conditions not being fulfilled at the same time. Therefore, I find that it is somewhat unusual after the fact to be making this determination. And I feel what I was getting from the people that were there expressing some concern was they wanted to ensure that whatever decision was made was going to be adequately vetted. From time to time, I do recognize, and maybe times I don't recognize, when matters are delegated to staff and I don't have an opportunity to weigh in after the fact. So I appreciate this motion because I agree with the degree to which there is some concerns, and quite a bit of concern in that neighborhood, that we need to have a fulsome discussion after we receive all of the feedback from the community so that we can make a decision. And I do appreciate the other alternatives that are being brought forward, which I had not considered or heard about, including angled parking. So I appreciate this coming forward and want to make sure that we do have an opportunity to discuss. And I don't consider this to be micromanaging. I consider this to be governing.
Thank you, Councillor Arneson. The next speaker is Councillor Woodward.
Yeah, I'd echo those sentiments. I think this was a relatively easy one, and I appreciate the Mayor Froese and the Chair for not ruling it out of order rather than avoid a notice of motion process, maybe getting sent to CPC or something as well. I view, potential for a loss of people's park space to affect their interest in residential property, and find it very reasonable for some members of council to attend the open house and bring it to the remainder of council's attention that there is an important decision to make here that will affect people's property rights and property values. Especially when we hear that apparently the developer is reportedly, and I don't know this for sure, reportedly marketing this parking lot as overflow visitor parking. I'd like to look into that. And I'd like to think that, the council is listening to the residents and stands up for them and makes it, and all we're doing with this motion is making it clear that we have listened and we will be reviewing the situation as a council and looking at all the options as a council before making any decisions. And I think it's important to send that message clearly to the members of the public from Murrayville that attended that open house. So I'm not sure what the objections are that have been raised by one particular member of council, which seem to be repetitive in nature when any motion is made in this regard. And I think it's important that we make it clear to the public that we are there to manage these important decisions. Thank you.
Councillor Richter.
Yes, I would just like to echo Councillor Arneson's comment about governing, and I really don't appreciate a particular member of this council rewriting our job descriptions on his own on the fly in a council meeting.
Question, please.
And the last that I realized or recognized is that the main thing we do is to listen to the public. And attending open houses is one of the ways that we do our job as councillors.
Councillor Long.
Yeah, well, all very well, Mr. Chair, but we're talking about safety. Drove by the situation yesterday. There were cars parked absolutely everywhere. So if there's going to be some injury to potential children crossing the street or other citizens in our township, it's not a political decision in my mind. It's a safety issue. And this council feels that it has more expertise than the staff do on that area. That's the objection I have, Mr. Chair, and that's the objection I have to this motion, is that council seems to be superseding in many occasions the common sense and expertise of our staff. It's been quite clear. So that's why I take objection to it. So you may as well call the vote.
Thank you, Councillor Long. Mr. Backen, this is a sensitive issue. You've got some direction and some comments from staff. Have you had any further comments yourself regarding what's been said today?
No, I think it's in order to call the question, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Okay, this goes under, has it already been a number assigned?
It would be I2.
Okay, call the vote. The vote? Call the vote?
Are you calling the vote?
Yeah, calling the vote. Sorry. I just want to, it's my fault. Vote completed. Councillor Long opposed. You ask the mayor to come back in.
Thank you. Okay, so we're done with that one. Other business? Councillor Richter?
Yes, I've got a few items here. Through you to staff, if I may, is there any way we could put on the township page and also on our website a request for citizens to report potholes? The pothole situation this year is really, really bad, and I'm thinking that we should maybe ask the public to help us identify where all these are.
Your Worship, we can recirculate. I think it's a pothole hotline, but there's some numbers that we have, so we can recirculate those on the website and on the township page just to get some information.
Okay, that's great. The second question, again for staff, is with regards to one of the applications that we're giving third reading to tonight. There's been some emails coming through on protected cycling infrastructure at the Aldergrove Mall redevelopment, and has that been included in this, or could it be included?
Just being cautious that we're after public hearing, Your Worship, so I'm taking it this is a question about a question that was raised prior to the closure of the public hearing.
Yeah, it came up then.
So, Steffi?
Your Worship, staff is prepared to respond to questions. In fact, there have been a number of queries from various members of council that staff have provided response to. I guess if the question that Councillor Richter is asking right now is whether a physical separation can be provided to protect the bike lane from the traveling lanes, the answer is yes, it could. With a caveat, a lot of conditions, and those are at the cost of, I guess, eliminating parking, on-street parking. It is physically not possible to, or I should say practically not possible to separate the two with a physical barrier because of the need for I guess passengers or drivers getting out of the parked vehicle to be able to access sidewalks. So as you can appreciate, the physical separation would provide a barrier to provide on-site parking as well as the bike lane with a physical separation. There's also been discussion or questions raised about the consistency of what is being provided with the township's own bylaws, in particular the subdivision and development servicing bylaw, and staff can confirm that there are requirements for physical separation, but not for this particular type of road, which is not an arterial. Where we do call for a physical separation, a physical barrier is only on arterial roads where there's no parking on the street. There are other considerations that staff have taken into account, and again, subject to council direction, staff can provide further information if needed.
Okay, thank you. I didn't want to be discussing something here that we're going to discuss at third, so I'll leave my other comments until we get to third. With regards to item number 7 on the items distributed list from February 20th, there pages 50 to 54. I'm not sure how these fit in with the audit planning report.
Oh, those.
Yeah. Yeah, or if
they were included by error, our best guess is that when the audit report was picked up off the photocopier, somebody else had printed something, and it just got mixed in.
Oh, okay. Because I was trying to figure out what we're supposed to be looking at there. Also, with respect to item number 7 on page 56, which is the BIA renewal results, what's the implications of this? Does this mean that we have
excuse
to
me, Councillor Richter, I think.
If we're going to be discussing the BIA renewal, I'll have to declare a conflict as I was a participant in the petition.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Mr. Power, did you catch that? The rationale? Yeah.
It's okay. If they don't, they'll make it up.
There's going to be a fight out there.
Okay, Councillor Richter.
Yes, so I just wondered, what's the implications of this for us? We're just going to stop collecting the tax and that's it? It's done? It's over?
Effectively, that's correct. What now takes place is the BIA's proposed budget for renewal has been defeated. That's known. The BIA now must have their annual general meeting and determine what they're going to do, A, with the proceeds, and B, for their future. At this point, they have many options ranging from dissolution to some sort of voluntary mechanism or something in between, and we haven't had any communications as to what that would look like. So that should be forthcoming, I think, when they have their meeting. But from our purposes, there won't be a levy bylaw this year. The matter is coming to a close. It's just going to be a matter of how it's wrapped up.
Okay. And we have no involvement or jurisdiction in that part of it, do we? And how they're going to wrap up?
Only as an overseer to ensure that any funding that they have is disseminated or distributed in accordance with their mandate.
Okay, so our staff will be monitoring that process?
But we'd be overseeing it just to make sure that it, this would never happen, but wasn't going to be paid out in some sort of membership dividend or something. It has to be used for its purposes or provided back to the township, I think is what the Act says. We'd have to get more specific, but I'm sure they'll find some way to wrap their processes up or continue in a voluntary manner.
Okay. And then item number 18 on page 76, which is with regards to a letter sent to us by Mr. Wade Callahan concerning safety. I see that it's been referred to the RCMP. Do we know if the RCMP is going to start monitoring that area?
Going by recollection, they were going to do some review, I think is the best way of putting it. Monitoring is also probably appropriate. They weren't just simply going to devote a lot of resources there. They wanted to do a bit of a review first.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Ferguson? Oh, hold on, we got to ask Councillor Woodward back in.
Oh, yeah.
It's your job, Councillor Davis, today.
If I speak fast enough, you won't hear what I said. Mr. Mayor, I just want to ask through the chair to staff, we've had a few budget meetings. Are we anticipating more budget meetings, and also are staff still open to comments from the public, either through email, written, or otherwise?
Getting with the last part first, that's correct, Your Worship. The email process remains, and as the questionnaire is still underway as well. In terms of more open houses, we're not anticipating any more open houses, and I think on our schedule, our next budget discussion would be on the 9th, March the 9th, where we'll be providing you with the results and the draft 5-year financial plan.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is there any other business? Seeing none, motion to terminate.
Termination.
Councillor Davis moves to terminate. A seconder. We have a seconder. And Councillor Kunst. All those in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you.